Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay. There's a recording in progress. We're going to call this meeting to order. We begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people, many of whom live and continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations Métis and Inuit people. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. So welcome to this hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of St. Catharines. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard when called upon. There are two major types of applications to this committee: applications for consent and severance, and applications for minor variances to municipal zoning bylaws. Evidence may be required to be given under oath if deemed necessary, although we never have. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Additionally, please maintain respect while communicating with the committee, staff, and other meeting participants to ensure a smooth, orderly discussion. We haven't changed that yet. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant and/or any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive a notice of decision. Pursuant to the More Homes Built Faster Act and in the matter of consent applications, the applicant, the minister, or a specified person or public body that has an interest in the matter has a right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the mailing of the decision, although there's not much mailing going on these days. Minor variance decisions may also be appealed. However, they must be made within 20 days of the making of the decision, and the cost of an appeal is $400. And maybe at this point, just as a first reminder, because of this whole of the mail strike, any of the applicants coming to present will be asked to provide Rosa with their email address discreetly before they sit down, because you'll be receiving email correspondence. Are there any amendments or additions to the agenda?
There is one. It was identified earlier today that the October 10th site plan for 62 Thomas Street was circulated with the application. However, an updated sketch was, which included a table and easement chart, was provided on November 14th. So it's been distributed to the committee and will be on tonight's PowerPoint. This updated sketch just included a table and an easement chart. So nothing else changed, but those two items. Otherwise, no other amendments to the agenda.
Thank you so much. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda from a member of the committee? Thank you, Tom. Do we have a motion to adopt the minutes of the last meeting? Thank you, Carrie. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in any of the applications being considered at this hearing or the previous hearing if they were not in attendance? I do not. Neither does anybody else. Thank you. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
There are none.
I'm here on this application from the board, and we did request an email for adjournment. We sent it yesterday.
Come on down and have a seat, turn on your mic, and we'll just discuss this and find out who this Reese Rosa is. No. Well, okay, that's great. Just turn on your microphone. So you are here with respect to which application?
47.
I was wondering. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
So which application? North Glen?
Yes.
And you had made an attempt, or you contacted the city regarding a request for a withdrawal or adjournment?
Adjournment, a deferral specifically of today.
A deferral, okay.
Just for I guess to get some background, my name is Peter Janowski. I'm a licensed paralegal. that was retained by the applicant a couple days ago. He provided me with the application. I reached out to a land use planner, and upon discussion, we decided that we would like a deferral to have an opportunity to provide either a better application with more supporting evidence, but also we're going to see if there's a way we can become in compliance with the bylaw, in which case the minor variance won't even be required. So we're simply asking for a 2-month deferral to allow us to do a little bit more research and prepare.
Okay, we can accommodate this request and consider it. Are there any questions of the members of the committee regarding this request for deferral? Nope. Does does either of the planning members from the city here today have anything they wish to add to this request? No? All right. So, yeah, so we have, so a 3-month deferral would be something that you'd be comfortable with?
Yes, is it possible to communicate with city staff to set a date once everybody's calendars are confirmed?
Yeah, but three months it would be the outset, and then if you can make something work in between, great.
Yeah, I
Right.
just know in February there's some dates that I'm personally not available, so I just want to make sure we pick one where another request isn't needed.
Could you turn off your microphone, please, and we'll have a member of the committee put a motion on the floor.
I'd like to move that the application for 47 North Glen be deferred for 3 months.
All those in favor of the motion for deferral for 3 months, show of hands. Great, we'll see you in 3 months. Your deferral's been approved.
Thank you to the committee.
Pardon? Rosa, would you need an email address in this case? Okay. So what happened there was there was a bit of miscommunication, which we corrected, and our first application has been deferred to a later date. So if anybody was here to speak to the application regarding 47 North Glen Avenue, that'll be at a later date. So item number 2 on the agenda is for 11 Paxton Avenue. So we'll have the applicant and/or agent come down and join us. Please. When you arrive, you give us your name, address, and before you leave, if you can remember to share your email address with Rosa, that'd be great. This is a minor variance application, and there are some 3 minor variances associated with it. This is to relocate an existing detached dwelling currently located at 13 Paxton Street to 11 Paxton Street. So they're going to pick it up, rotate it around, and move it closer to the street, further away from the shoreline. Who are you and where do you live? And please tell us what you want to share with us. If you could turn on your microphone and fill in any more information.
Did
you wish.
everybody hear that, or do we got to go through it again? No, we're good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So would you like to explain anything about the application that would further the cause, or are you happy with the information that we have?
Although it is all in the application itself, there's a stable top of embankment line that runs through the house that is currently at 13 Paxton. The house faces and has a porch facing Lake Ontario. The embankment is starting to erode, and the clients do not want to lose the house. They cannot expand the house or alter it where it is because of the constraints of that site and the required setbacks. They do not have riparian rights down to the street. So the proposition that's being made, because the owner of 13 Paxton also owns 11 Paxton, which is vacant, is to simply move the house back, but rotate it 90 degrees, because right now, if they just transpose that onto the 11 Paxton, you'd have the backside and the side facing the public street, which is not very desirable. So by rotating, it'll allow the front porch, which currently faces the lake, to face Paxton. Yes, essentially. Everything on Portaloo is on about a 45-degree angle. But in doing so, there's a very small appendage in the back corner that would be removed. And in doing so, a full basement would be constructed underneath the house, upon which, when it's relocated, it would rest. And we recognize that we would have to get a building permit to do so. It's a bit of a three-pronged approach in that we need heritage approval, we need the minor variance approval, and we also need NPCA approval. Since the application that went in, we have received heritage approval to do so. I can give you a copy of this, or Elaine probably has it internally now. But we've received that. And NPCA likes the fact that moving it will put the house onto stable ground, so to speak. And it resolves that issue of the building sitting on an unstable site. So we're in the process. They just can't give us the NPCA permit to do so until we clear all these other hurdles, of which the minor variance is one of them, and that's why we're here. But
Of the 3 minor variances being asked for and the comments from the staff, any issues with the staff comments?
no, we're all in favor of them, and including, I'd just like to point out, one of which, the minor variance, is that we're going to be too close to the street. And if you look at what is across the street, which I believe is 14 Paxton, it shows up on there it is right there. They are only approximately 3 feet back from their property line. And if you go to our site plan, if you don't mind, right there, in the very upper left corner, you can see 2 Macefield. They are almost on the street line. So the context in and around the area is homes that are built very close. So although we require a minor variance to do so, it is not out of character for this area with respect to that front setback. But there are 2 required because one is to the house and one is to the porch.
Great, thanks so much. Any questions from the committee to the applicant?
Oh, not to the applicant.
Planning, clarification?
Yeah, through you to staff, just for clarity, I believe in 2012, there was a consent application to sever this property, and the ownership never changed. The same owner must have continued to own these 2 parcels. Is that why these would not merge on title, being that they're still owned by the same person?
Through the chair to the committee member, the reason why the properties were not merged is because once the severance is created, they do not merge on title, because the severance was created.
Thank you so much. Is there any, yes?
Just to provide a bit of background, there were 2 lots, 11 and 13 Paxton historically. They were merged into a single lot, and they were severed back, I believe, in 2012, or thereabouts, severed into 2. But they have switched hands since that point in time. So there's been a bit of a history on this site. But there were 2 lots, they became 1, they were severed back to 2, and they have since been sold to the client, Sandra and Scott, who cannot be here. She's having an operation done down in South America, where they reside from, and they apologize that they can't be here for this hearing. But I don't know if that gives you sort of some historical context. But the lots were sold.
My understanding with the Planning Act is that if you take title to land that abuts land you already own, they merge on title. So I'm just wondering if the consents are still valid or if this is one property.
So here, we're looking at minor variances only, and the explanation was that due to the ownership arrangement, they did not merge. So we are not here for consents. Right? Right. So, okay, thank you. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application for 11 Paxton Avenue? Yes, sir. Would you please come down to the head of the horseshoe? No, you can't. You have to do like everybody else. Because we're on YouTube, we need your microphone. We're being broadcast on YouTube, so your microphone's required. You're not shy of the stage anyhow. No. Microphone and everything. Microphone and everything.
Okay, ready. So very quick, very briefly, I only have one question. Can we finally now get Paxton paved?
Okay. Do you want to sit down for the answer, or you wish to remain standing? So, really quite unrelated to this application, is there any bearing on this application and Paxton being paved?
Through the chair to the member of the public, I do not have information about the road being paved.
You shall have to wait a little while longer.
How much longer would that be?
If you happen to know who your political representative is, perhaps they can help you get the answer. Obviously, our purview is absolutely, specifically, and only these 3 minor variances, and the city's timeline for paving Paxton is nothing that anybody here would know.
Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously, the reason why, as you know, history has caused a great deal of parking issues along that unattended, unpaved section of road where it kind of gives the aura of that, well, we can park and no one's going to bother me, because it's not really a road, it's kind of in nowhere land. So paving it would really solve a lot of issues and a lot of phone calls. So that's basically what I wanted to know.
Yeah, so understood. That matter is outside our purview, so I encourage you to contact your local city councilor, and perhaps they can help provide you an answer from the department in the city who would schedule these things. However, the applicant may have a comment.
I'd just like to say, Mr. Chair, that the driveway that is proposed is capable of having 2 cars. So they've met the parking requirements. So it's not foreseen that they would be parking on that portion of the roadway.
That's a great point, actually. That will then kind of improve the situation if they have their own parking allocation on the property. Yeah, absolutely. That's all I have.
Great, thanks so much. They would have had parking on the site before, but they would have had parking on the site before, though. Okay, thank you. That was Joe Colonna, everybody. So if there are no further questions from the members of the committee, I'd be ready for someone to make a motion, please. David?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentation, I move that variance application A6424 as revised in the technical report be approved as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
All those in favor of the motion? Great, your application's been approved unanimously. Thank you. We now find ourselves on our 3rd application for this evening, and that's at 44 Tulip Tree Common. This is a minor variance requested to facilitate an enclosed sunroom that doesn't meet the requirements of a rear yard setback. The planning staff report recommends approval, so at this time, I'm expecting the applicant and or owner to come down and join the conversation, contribute to the conversation. So this is your opportunity, having read the staff report that I just reiterated the highlights of, to add any more comments you wish to make.
Yes, so my name is Jerry Castler, and with my wife that's sitting over there, Maureen, we're the owners of 44 Tulip Tree Common. And first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to appear before the Committee of Adjustment. And just want to give you a really brief history. Once we took possession of our home, which was a new build from Silvergate Homes, we began the process of building a sunroom. And the first thing we did was apply for a building permit with the city. As part of this process, we went back and forth with the city. They asked for engineering reports, MPCA approval, a site layout, and all of those were provided. And subsequent to that, a building permit was issued. We went and built it. At the end of 2022, we had the building department come in. They did a final inspection. We got written confirmation that everything was built, everything was closed. And then this year we get a letter saying that we have a setback issue that we were not aware of. So they advised that we should consider a minor variance. We've gone through and did that applicant. We believe we took all the right steps, and somehow we didn't. So, but we went back and forth with the city, making sure everything was done, and we only performed the construction after we got approval. So we would appreciate your approving our request for this minor variance.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the committee to the applicant? Or planning staff?
Assuming there was a building permit issued and closed, would this issue not have been noted at the time?
Through the chair, I believe part of the issue is that it simply was not caught at that time and has been caught in the follow-up inspections.
That might have be reflected in the staff report recommending approval. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? At this point, thanks, David.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A6524 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. And I would ask that after that vote, if I couldn't have something more to say.
All those in favor of the motion to approve the application? Okay, so that's been approved unanimously.
I have to take as an assumption that the gentleman went through the proper process of getting a building permit and all of the issues, and I would recommend, or I would move that we waive the fee for this application.
Any discussion among the committee members? All those in favor for this motion to waive the fee? And a bonus is there's been a motion to recommend for removal of the fee anyway, waiving of the fee. Okay, thank you so much. That's your time with us this evening. All right, item 4 on our agenda is for 33 Bayview Drive, back to Port Dalhousie. This is a severance application with 2 associated minor variances. The staff report has a number of conditions associated with the severance, and the severance therefore initiates 2 minor variances, each for each of the created lots, or this is to facilitate the construction of a detached dwelling, and the remnant parcel is to be retained to construct a detached dwelling. So, and we have staff, we have, again, the conditions for the severance, and we have staff approval for the minor variance. Wow, this is a touchy mouse. Where am I? I'm lost. So everything's looking good from that perspective. Would you like to state your name and address and let us know if you have anything you wish to add to the conversation, please?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Carlos Ochoa. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you, all members of the board. And yes, as you explained it, and it's very well defined on the application, we submitted for a severance as a consent, and that there's a couple of items that we have to address as a minor variance. One of those is an oversized lot, and the other one is the frontage setback. But actually, there's a comment also in the application that reference into the possibility of doing a higher density, but the clients decided to go for a single family that is basically the one that is settled or established on the neighborhood. And the reason why we asking for a setback encroach or maximum 8 meters into the numbers that we have from the application is because we actually want to match the surrounding houses and be friendly with the neighborhood. Providing more landscaping, we have to drain all the water into the front of the property. And also we want to comply with parking, self-contained in the property, especially for 33. And those are basically the reasons why we apply for it. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, can you turn your mics off, please? Just if there's too many on, they don't. Carlos, yours as well, please. Just turn your microphone off until you need it. Thanks. I need mine though. Are there any members of the committee who have any questions or clarifications regarding this application? Nope. Tom?
If there is no questions, I'll make a motion.
Pardon?
If there's no questions, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Well, we need to go to the gallery first, please. Is there anybody in the gallery this evening who wishes to speak to this application at 33 Bayview Drive? As you saw previously, we invite you to come down, sit at the head of the horseshoe, turn on your microphone, and tell us who you are and share your comments. You hit the wrong button, first off.
Bottom.
There you go. You got it. That's it.
All right. My name is John Burns. I'm moved back at my mother's to help her out. She's 94 now. So anyways, I'm wondering, same as the neighbors, when they start pounding around and everything else, what is going to happen to the old houses that are over 100 years old with the foundation? Because if they start cracking, it's going to be a lawsuit. And thing is, I had a problem with the gentleman over there anyways, coming over on a Sunday, and coming over to my mother's at 9-3 saying, I own this, you need to move that deck back, and I told him to go to his lawyer. And then, whatever, let it go with that. And then, of course, then the city called on them because they didn't cut the grass in the back. So the city have to go after that for that. But I just want to know what's going to happen with these foundations of these houses. I got a problem with that, and I just don't want you. And I did, because of that, a friend of mine told me to put a camera up, so I did. So keep him out of my property. So that way, then if that happens again, he's going to be charged. Comes nearer.
Okay, so the relationship between neighbors has less of an impact on how we're viewing this from the point of view of the zoning bylaw, but thank you for sharing. With respect to disturbance to adjacent neighbors in the street and new construction, that's a problem with any new construction site. And in terms of any concerns anyone might have of damage as a result of vibrations through the earth and so on, that would be something that ideally you can, before construction starts, you can have your neighbors document the condition of your foundation. That way everyone has a reference point, and if there is damage observed, you can go back to your reference point and discuss how it's going to happen. However, that kind of disturbance to the peace and quiet of a neighborhood does not prevent development from happening.
Oh, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
I got no problem with that.
So typically what happens is that a survey is done of the existing conditions of the surrounding houses. You could do it yourself, let your neighbor know, have it date stamped, and then if there's any difference observed post-construction, then there would be a reference point. But But with respect to our considering granting the severance and granting these 4 minor variances total, you're not specifically addressing if you have any concerns about, are you concerned that the positioning of the proposed buildings in the lot? Each building, we're not here for any parking reductions, so each building is providing the minimum parking required. Is there any concerns you have specifically about the variances that are being proposed?
Where he builds his house, I don't care. I just don't want no damage to the house. I mean, he called the city came down, the deck was fine, everything's good, deck's is back, he says, leave it. And I know where the property line is, and my old man taught me that when I was 7 years old.
Okay.
So,
Well, the good news is they have a survey prepared, or a survey sketch prepared by a land surveyor, so there is now a current reference point where property lines are. So if there's nothing further to add, then thank you for your comments.
okay, thank you, that's all
All
I
right,
want
if
to
you
know.
turn your mic off on your way out the
Sure.
door, that'd be great, thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this application, specifically the minor variances that are being requested? Thanks much. Nope, okay, great, thank you. Does the applicant have any further comments? Nope. At this point, then, I would invite a committee member to make a motion.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B 1924, SC, and variance applications A 6624 and A 6724 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report. As the consent is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, has no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, has regard to the provisions of Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conforms with the policies of the city's official plan, and with the conditions fulfilled will also comply with the zoning bylaw, maintains the intent and purpose of the provincial planning statement, and does not conflict with any provincial plans, and both variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning plan, of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you, couldn't have said it better myself. All those in favor of the motion? Congratulations, your application's been approved unanimously. To Church Street, come on down. Thomas Street, sorry. Thomas Street, come on down and tell us about your application. While you're doing that, I will run down the Coles Notes version. This is a severance application with associated minor variances for 62 Thomas Street. The severance application, which is the dividing of land, has a number of conditions associated with it. The minor variances are related to the building that remains in the proposed building for the corner. And this is to facilitate the construction of a detached dwelling unit. So now we have the applicants here to tell us more about their application. Please. Is it that hard to find, that little icon? I mean, it's so obvious. You're on it. You got it. You're good.
Hi. 62 Church? Yes. Okay. I'm Joseph Felzone. I'm here with Better Neighborhoods. And this is Glenn. Glenn Barr. The owner of the property. So yeah, we are going to be, our plan is to sever. We have applied for some minor variances for both the remnant and the subject property. And we are also applying for some easements. Yeah.
Okay, so are there any questions or anything, there's no presentation? This is usually a presentation-heavy kind of thing, but it's very clear to us. So I'm going to ask the committee if they have any questions.
Yes.
You'll be able to answer? Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee to the applicant? Look at that, great, thank you. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? Please come on down. And I've asked you please shut your mic off. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I am the current owner of 11 Lowell, which resides directly behind 62 Thomas. I have multiple concerns about the parking. They are only allotted 2 parking spaces currently. With you putting in that home there, that will take that away. There is already a lack of parking in our neighborhood. My other concern is with them putting up a home there that blocks any, and this is kind of like silly, it blocks any natural light coming into my only, excuse me, I'm a little nervous, so I'm shaky. It blocks any natural light that would be coming into our only 2 kitchen windows. And again, I know that's not really a big issue, but it is to me. My major concern, though, also beyond the parking, is there isn't a lot of room where you're trying to put that house from the sidewalk into the allotted property. So I really don't know where we're fitting this home.
So let us try.
I'm so sorry. I'm sure they're all in adjustments and everything, and it's more just, it's a
We're going to try.
emotional issue.
We're going to try and apply some facts to the emotion here and answer some of your questions.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
I'm going to try. So on the screen behind me is the site plan, and your home and my home and everyone's home here exists on a piece of property with a bunch of invisible lines.
Yep.
And the intention of those invisible lines is to try and make room for parking, keep buildings back from property lines to allow air and light to circulate around it. And the purpose of this hearing this evening in this application is to take what is currently an existing lot with an existing house on it and recognize the fact that there's an opportunity, the client recognizes the fact that there's an opportunity here given the geometry of the site and that the existing house is off to one side and the size that this could probably, as they are proposing and showing, accommodate another detached home. So that's why we're here for the severance. And then the minor variances are where those invisible lines try and keep the space between things are being asked for. And in some cases, they're unable to meet the zoning bylaw requirements, such as an exterior side yard needing to be 3 meters, whereas in fact they're asking for 2. So what this meeting does is allow us time to review, have staff comment in this report that hopefully you've read, and decide whether these are minor changes to the rules to allow a significant development to provide a home for multiple people to exist. So parking is one of the minor variances being asked for with respect to the interior accessory dwelling unit. So in St. Catharines, any of the residential zones as of right can have.
I did look up the zoning, so I do know that they are allotted. It's legal for them to have 2. For a very small amount of time, I'd worked within appraisals.
Yep.
So I do understand that. I just wasn't sure and unfortunately did not have the time to go through the entire report as I do on a business.
Well, I was giving you the short, I was kind of going through the report in my
sorry.
description.
I'm
But,
sorry
but in short, yes, the building doesn't quite meet does not meet the exact, in various locations where the variances are, the requirements of zoning bylaw. But we are here to determine whether they're close enough to allow this development to happen. So parking, you mentioned parking, which is why I bring it up.
That's my biggest concern.
Lowell is a one-way street, and this proposed development does provide on-site parking, but because there's an interior accessory dwelling unit, they're supposed to provide a 0.5 parking spot, which is mathematically difficult to imagine, but they're asking for relief from that. But other than that, the building isn't asking for a height reduction or increase or anything like that. So these are just the spaces around it. So what we're going to do now, and I have the applicant have anything they wish to add regarding the concerns from the neighbor?
I can address your concern about the shadowing. We are not proposing any changes to the minimum rear setback. We have 8 meters clearance, which is more than the minimum rear, so I don't want your windows to be disrupted, but I don't think they will be. If the house was maybe closer, then maybe that would be a problem, but I think we're doing our best to keep your space.
So, are there any other concerns that you think we can address for you?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you so much for participating. Is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? Okay, thank you. Any further questions from the committee or anyone wish to put forth a motion? Any of the three of you? Yes, thank you, David.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move the consent application B 2124 SC and variance application A 68 and 6924 as presented in the notice of hearing, except for variance 4 of A 6924, which has been withdrawn, be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, as the consent is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, has no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, has regard to the provisions of Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conforms with the policies of the city's official plan, and with conditions fulfilled will also comply with the zoning bylaw, maintains the intent and purpose of the provincial planning statement, and does not conflict with any applicable provincial plans. The variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Okay, if there's no discussion among the committee, all those in favor of the motion to approve, all those not in favor? One. So your application's been approved, although not unanimously, but it's been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are you sticking around for the next one? Otherwise, we're going to move on to Phelps Street. Thank you. So our next application is, in fact, for 8 and 10 Phelps Street. This is a consent application to subdivide the property. So there will be a proposed future residential development and also to retain an existing, the detached dwelling, as well as to recognize an easement to permit vehicle access to the benefit of 8 Phelps. So please come on down. So, yes, you may be seated, although you're a little early. So right now, the applicant has an opportunity to comment on the number of conditions that's in the staff report, but otherwise approval, recognizing with those conditions in play. And if there's anything you wish to add to my short description of the application, now's your time.
I put together a quick presentation. Nicholas Godfrey, Upper Canada Consultants. And I put together a quick presentation to explain the purpose and rationale of our boundary adjustment and registration of an easement.
I assume that the presentation has been provided to, okay. Well, it'll eventually arrive on the screen. We're not in a rush. So to the speaker, normally we have the discussion first and then you'll contribute, so we will get to you shortly. Thank you. No, not this point. We're gonna follow the presentation, so we're all up to speed as you are, and then we'll. Okay, you're good for a second. If you are ready to go, then turn on your mic, please.
So briefly, 8 and 10 Phelps Street are 2 single attached lots directly next to each other. One has a single detached dwelling, one is vacant. They're within the Northwest Meriton neighborhood, and they're surrounded by existing residential uses. The OP designation is low-density residential, and the zoning is R2. And both zoning permits, it's okay. Both zoning permits a range of residential typologies, one of which we'll be looking at implementing or permitting in subsequent Planning Act applications. So next slide, please. So what we're planning on doing, so these are the existing parcels. 8 Phelps is to the left, that's the retained lot. 10 Phelps is to the right, that will be the proposed expanded lot. Next slide, please. So the adjustment will add a small piece of frontage to 10 Phelps Street and the backlands from 8 Phelps Street to 10 Phelps Street. Next slide, please. And then we're going to register an easement in favor of 8 Phelps Street across 10 Phelps Street. And this easement will permit parking to be accessed at the rear of 8 Phelps Street, and this was a recommendation made in collaboration with city staff who wanted to, and we agree with them, to reduce asphalt and unnecessary driveway access to both sites. So next slide, please. So here's a representation of what the driveway access will look like. They'll share the access through the middle, and there'll be 3 parking spaces at the rear. This assembly will require no zoning relief, no zoning permissions. We're right-sizing the retained lots so that it's subject to the conditions of consent. It will be within the zoning permissions, and the 10 Phelps will be, undertake subsequent Planning Act approvals. The concept hasn't been refined yet, but we're working through a few different proposals, but ultimately it will retain driveway access from the point established through the easement. And that is, I think the next slide, I think that's it. That's my presentation. So I'm available for questions.
Thanks so much. At this moment, are there any questions from the members of the committee? You, sir. Please turn your microphone on. Tell us who you are, where you live. No. The lower. It seems so.
I forgot my glasses. So, yeah. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the owner of 6 Phelps. And I just want, I got a letter written up with all my comments, so I submitted it to the lady over there. But I just wanted to just kind of just go over it once for everyone here. Essentially, if this application gets granted, I would like to have a fence there, so that for privacy, because that's one of my main concerns is having this development. It's gonna, I had a beautiful land that backed onto the park, and now it's gonna be obstructed with some condos, low-income housing, I think, right? That's what it's called. So we already have a short-term housing building on maybe 300 feet from us. So it's gonna be, so that's what I would like to have, some privacy. Also, if you guys plan to put some lights, I would like them to point towards the property, not towards
so I'm going to answer your questions as you raise them, okay? So I remember. So at this point, there is no proposed development. What's going to happen post this meeting? There will be virtually no difference in that we're just moving lines around. Correct?
Yes.
Correct.
So through you, Chair.
So
many of these items will be addressed through subsequent Planning Act applications. So at this point, we're just doing a land assembly. At a subsequent stage, there'll be an opportunity to comment again. So we'll be doing a zoning bylaw amendment, potentially an official plan amendment to set up the zoning for the use we'd like. And then subsequent to that, we'll be establishing the tenureship of the lots. That means what kind of lots, what the sizes will be. And through that process, there's usually a detailed site plan exercise where you'll see things like perimeter fencing, lighting, landscape buffers, and all those will be done in conjunction with city staff. So there's minimum standards we'll have to meet. And those minimum standards are geared towards ensuring there's no nuisance to neighboring properties. So I think through that process, there'll be opportunity to comment, but also through that process, I think you'll probably be guaranteed that the things you're concerned about will be addressed.
So
okay, so I can, I guess, submit these comments at a later stage?
So yeah, the point is, this is kind of, they're building up to something which is physical. Right now, they're moving invisible lines. So the things that you're talking about are physical, and hopefully you didn't consider this a waste of your evening, but at a future date, should minor variances and be required, there will be a public meeting to discuss those. And the applicant will at the very least have to meet the city's zoning bylaw requirements for light spillage and stormwater management on the site and so on. So as a result of whatever happens this evening, there will be no physical changes to the property that you see today.
Because there's been no, I guess, plans drawn up for that, is that?
Not concrete plans yet. So we're looking to do something that's within the prevailing typology. So it'll be a low-rise use likely. It'll be fit within the character of the neighborhood. The previous slide that showed the zoning permissions is likely what we'll be aligning with. So it will be likely a low-rise use. We're not looking to do anything at this stage beyond 2 stories.
Yeah, I don't think I can say anything that will stop the easement change, but I do have concerns because if that's approved, the next step is you can build high-density buildings.
We can so the conversation goes through me, firstly, so not directly between you, just to maintain order. But I would like to get the answer to that question. So we have planning staff here, and planning staff, would you please identify, given the current zoning, what what the current zoning bylaw allows for building type on this property?
Yeah, so through the chair, it's a low-density residential zone, so detached houses, semi-detached townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, and I don't know if I forgot any, but I think that's mainly it.
Flashing. And there'd be a height, 11-meter height limitation, and, okay, so to your concerns, this is not zoned to be a medium density or high density, it's low density, and it would be all those typical housing types that you're familiar with in your neighborhood already. So there should be no surprises as this project develops, but right now it's at the early stages.
Right.
All right?
Well, I just also want to, okay, that's fine, I understand that. I also want to just express my disappointment in the, building houses in the backyards of people's houses. It's just kind of just a bad design. I know it's we want to build more homes, we got a grant, but it's not going to look good. It's just, if the owner of 10 Phelps just stuck to his original plot, the 8 Phelps would have a nice backyard, we'd have a nice backyard, everything would have been great, but we're getting this awkward modification of these lines here that will allow for.
Okay, thank you for your comments, appreciate it.
Okay.
So at this point, you're welcome to take a seat back in the gallery. After you turn off your microphone, please.
Okay.
And then I think you already shared your email address with Rosa? No, I haven't. Okay, well, if you would do that, that'd be great. Is there anybody else in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Any questions from the members of the committee? Tom?
Through you to staff, just some clarity on the conditions, because they have to be met within a certain time frame for the consent to be valid. Do all these conditions make sense, just considering there's no building being proposed at this time, specifically with spatial separations with the existing, and then servicing and grading plan and removal of the trees?
Through you, Chair, can I answer?
Well, just at the
Was it
moment,
to staff? Sorry.
well, let staff take a crack at it, and
Sure.
then you can tell them how they're wrong. Or we can hear what the applicant has to say. Hey, applicant,
So,
please,
through
let us
you,
know.
Chair. These are pretty standard conditions. So the one with respect to spatial separation, that's just an exercise that a BCIN can do to confirm window openings in relation to the lot line. The lot grading plan is something that's a quick exercise as well. So all these are fairly standard conditions. None of them I would consider to be too onerous. I considered actually debating one of them and asking to remove it today, but I'm not going to. But spatial separation requirement, that might be the only one that I think is maybe a bit onerous, but I think in this case, it makes sense given that there's no guarantees that they'll be able to meet the OBC building requirements if we don't go ahead and do that calculation. I know Bill Building Department likes to have that one on a lot of severance applications, so it's standard.
Well, I'm going to try and put some flesh on what your question was. So I heard the question as being, we're approving conditions. There is no construction that we have in the foreseeable future an understanding of. Is there an expiry date on these conditions? Because normally we associate the conditions to a 12-month period or something like that. So if they don't build anything in 12 months and these conditions that relate to a physical building, what happens to those after 12 months?
So through the chair, to the chair, the conditions have a 2-year expiry date. So this is to facilitate, so in particular, for example, the spatial separation that is pertaining to the existing dwelling. So that's understanding how the existing dwelling will exist in the future or proposed lot configuration, essentially. But they have 2 years to fulfill all their conditions.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, my biggest concern was just the trees. I mean, plans can change over time. Having to clear cut this lot just because it says so to make the consent valid was just, that would have to happen eventually if you were potentially if you were building in this lot, but clear cutting it just for the purpose of a consent was my only concern, is why that was added.
So the concern there is, of the conditions, if one of them is tree removal, they could go ahead and do that tomorrow, but not actually build for 2 years. And then there's the loss of benefit of the trees for the 2 years that they could have remained.
Or ever.
And you're questioning why would that have to be on here now? Is there a response to that?
Through the chair, so in regards to existing lot conditions, it's essentially the grading and drainage, or the grading plan at this stage will, I guess, survey the existing conditions on site, and then when a future development application comes in, we can see how they will require another grading plan as well to kind of see how that will change.
And through you, Chair, the condition relating to the application to store removal and replanting of new trees, my understanding to staff is that that would just be trees in the public right of way. So that there are no conditions with respect to trees on private property. There's no tree bylaw in St. Catharines. So, but also my recollection, the owners here, is that there are not really any trees on this site. It's I could be.
That was actually one of my comments, is to retain the existing trees there. Right. That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Yes, that was one of my comments that I wish I could have said. That was,
No, that's good. What we're talking about now. That's great. Thank you.
but it's in the paper. It's in the.
Yep. As the applicant just confirmed, though, there is no tree bylaw pertaining to privately owned trees, only as it pertains to public right-of-way, which is, has been clarified. So, great, thank you. At this point, again, if there's no more clarification required, I think we're ready for a motion. Thank you, Carrie.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent applications B2224 and B2324 be approved as presented in the notice of hearing and subject to the 8 conditions as contained in the technical report, as the consents are desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, have no adverse impact on the surrounding properties, have regard for the provisions of Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conform with the policies of the city's official plan, while also comply with the zoning bylaw, maintain the intent and purpose of the provincial planning statement, and do not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
All those in favor of the motion? Your application is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to stay seated.
That can only mean that 40 Nielsen Avenue is in your purview. At this address, this is the expansion of an existing industrial building as a legal an enlargement of it. It's legal non-conforming use, and staff report has outlined the specifics of the application and recommended approval. So with that brief introduction to the project, do you have anything you wish to add?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Chair, I have a presentation ready. Okay. So 40 Nielsen is very high level. It's an existing industrial site on 40 Nielsen Avenue. It's approximately 2.72 hectares, and it's got approximately 24 meters of frontage on Nielsen Avenue, and it's surrounded by existing industrial and commercial uses. The purpose of this application is because there is a misalignment between the continuous or the current legal nonconforming use and the surrounding land use designations and the current land use designation. So the OP designation is commercial, and the zoning bylaws community commercial, subject to an H1. So industrial uses are not permitted on this site. Next slide, please. So the area context, I've highlighted the subject site. It's within an area that, in green here, that is predominantly industrial with commercial uses as well. So it is contiguous with what exists here presently and is not in conflict with any of these uses. And this area developed because it is well located for industrial needs, access to the St. Lawrence Seaway and intra-provincial access through the QEW, intra-regional, travel through the 406 and Regions Economic Gateway, and there are very limited residential uses in the highlighted area. They're all outside of this area. Next slide, please. So this shows the current zoning, and it also shows that this area is what I would consider, in my opinion, an enclave within an area that is existing employment land uses, and represents, I think, the misalignment between what the present use is and the surrounding uses, the northern and southern abutting uses with the surrounding employment area land use context. So next slide, please. Directly north of the subject site is asphalt manufacturing, as well as a salvage yard and scrap yard. And then directly south is the Ferrante Packard plant, which was a transformer manufacturing facility that is, and the site is known to have contamination. So both sites are consistent with industrial uses, and both, particularly the northern sites, are existing continuous heavy industrial uses. Next slide, please. So the history of legal nonconforming use at this site is that, the zoning bylaw was implemented, I might be wrong on this point, but in 2013, I can't remember the exact month. So predating this redesignation, Nels Consulting operated a facility at this site, and Nels Consulting are an industrial use. They design the construction and testing of fluid flow models for heavy industrial operations. So they made use of this extensive facility at 40 Nielsen, and they occupied the site from 2005 to approximately 2019. And in the interim, they were purchased by the parent company of Trenergy, Machina. And when they purchased it, they leased it to AMSI, and AMSI manufacture custom engineering electrical products, and they occupied the space until December 2023, at which point the site was cleaned up and made available for Trenergy, who occupied it in the spring of 2024. So throughout this period, there's been continuous legal non-conforming use, and it has not changed use at all during this time. And there's been nothing to indicate that there has been anything other than an industrial use at this site. Next slide, please. So the proposal is to expand the existing industrial facility on the subject lands. The top slide is what exists now, and the proposed expansion is represented on the bottom slide. So Trenergy manufacture industrial boilers, and I think I've made a typo on this. Occupied the site since June 2024. I think it's actually April. April? Yeah. Okay. And again, it's continuous legal non-conforming industrial use on the site that precedes the passage of the current bylaw. Next slide, please. So the proposal, I've outlined in blue the footprint that is expanding. So there's a relocated Quonset hut to the north. There is an addition to the low facility at the middle of the site, and there's a new furnace or shop blast furnace at the south of the site. And next slide, please. Actually, I should back up a second. Sorry. We're also expanding the parking areas. So there'll be an expansion of the on-site parking and some of the landscaping areas. Next slide, please. So in summary, in my opinion, the use is desirable for the subject land and will not result in undue impacts on the adjacent properties or neighborhood, and it meets the what are the established two tests for Section 45(2) and in case law, and that the expansion doesn't require zoning relief, the height of the building is not increasing, the expansion is a logical extension of the existing structure using the existing footprint, the building setbacks and parking requirements are being met, it does not encroach into natural heritage features, the use has air quality controls and silencers on all equipment, has them now, and it will have them on the expansion. And the landscape buffers along the parking areas, there will be landscape buffers along the parking areas, and there's also a water course directly north of the site, which I say water course, but it's actually, I think, more of a drainage ditch. The MPCA does not consider it regulated, so it's just a conveyance of water, but it is zoned and designated as, I believe, either open space or natural or environmental conservation. So it's a protected northern buffer as well that can buffer the site from any uses to the north that if they manage to convert those northerly sites. And it's also compatible with existing surrounding uses. So it's compatible with all existing uses today under the as-built practical uses of the site here and surrounding in the neighborhood. So in summary, that is my presentation. I'm available for questions.
Thanks so much. That's very comprehensive. So comprehensive, there are no questions from members of the committee. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application? All right, we're back to the committee for a motion, please.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that minor variance application A7024 as presented in notice of hearing be approved. Sorry, this is a new verbiage. With being amended to permit the expansion or enlargement of an existing industrial building as the extension of the use has regard for subsection 45.2A I or 45.2A, I guess that was 1 versus I, 45.2A2 or 45.2B of the Planning Act. The use of the lands lawfully continued since the passage of the bylaw prohibiting it. It is compatible with the surrounding uses.
It's possible you made up some of those sections just out of the top of your head, right? Great, thank you.
I don't know, is that a multiple choice? You pick which 45.2?
All those in favor of the motion as we understand it? Carrie, you're in favor of the motion if your hand was on the mouse? Great. Congratulations, your application's been approved unanimously.
Thank
Say
you.
that again?
That brings us to the last item on our agenda, and that is 97 Hartzell Road. At 97 Hartzell Road, we have a severance application and 2 minor variances, kind of like what we've seen earlier this evening. This is to construct a 10-unit apartment building, subject to easements. Easements are proposed for maintenance and access purposes over drive aisles, parking areas for transformer proposed to serve both. The staff report has noted that variances 1 and 3 they support, whereas variance 4 they are recommending for denial. With that brief introduction to the project, I invite the applicant to state their name and offer any other information we should know.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. My name is Alicia Monteith. I am the Manager of Development Planning and Operations at Corbett Land Strategies, and I'm the applicant this evening on behalf of the landowners. We're here this evening for 1 consent and 1 minor variance application per proposed property. It is proposed that the lot be severed into 2 parcels, and the intent is that each parcel be developed for a 10-unit purpose-built apartment building and associated 10 parking spaces. We've configured the lot as you see it before you on the sketch here and in the plan in a manner that consolidates the entrances onto Hartzell. Because the parking lot is for residential use and is 10 spaces or less, there is no drive aisle requirements for it. Therefore, the 3 meters contained within 1/2 of the lot or that support 1 building comply with the zoning bylaw. So we've decided to pair the entrances such that we can then propose an easement over those entrances for ease of access and maintenance. However, I do want to note that if we were to separate the accesses and, for instance, put them on the other side of the buildings, that would be in compliance with the bylaw, and under that circumstance, we would not require an easement. However, we would have less landscape open space and require more asphalt for vehicular parking. So in alignment with the city official plan, we've opted to reduce the number of entrances for this parcel. So to create the 2 parcels, we do require a minor variance for lot width. That is the variance that staff are recommending denial, and that goes hand in hand with their recommendation to deny the consent altogether.
I understand, I've read the staff report, and I do appreciate, first off, all the time and consideration from staff on this matter. We've been working with them closely over the last few months, and we appreciate their responsiveness. I have reviewed the report and appreciate the support that we have for the first 3 variances, which are a reduction in the side yard by 1 meter and a reduction in the front yard setback by 3 meters. So with respect to the severance, the staff report does go into the official plan policies in which they raise concerns, particularly with redundancy of servicing and significant expense. I'd like to note that in the development engineering comments that we received, development engineering did not raise any concerns with expense associated with the ongoing maintenance or creation of one new service connection. In speaking with our engineer, it's our understanding, and based on the comments we received from staff as well, any work that will be required to restore or construct these service laterals will be covered by the proponent and or reimbursed to the city if the city does incur the costs associated with it, as per the development engineering comments. So the ongoing expense would be limited to maintenance. From that respect, we would be increasing the property value and therefore the taxes associated with it. It is a vacant, underdeveloped parcel that has been vacant for over 10 years now. So the landowners have acquired it, and they are passionate about bringing housing opportunities to St. Catharines, and this proposal includes purpose-built rental. It is important to their financial viability for the project to have 2 separate parcels, and we have recommended the easement, or seeking the easement, for ease of, again, maintenance and access. However, it's not theoretically required for the property to function, and therefore the variance reduction from 20 meters to 15 meters we feel is still appropriate. Staff had made comments with respect to concerns about the functionality of the property. We could, as demonstrated, have access and appropriate setbacks per se on the property with the 15 meters, and therefore should be considered appropriate. The 15 meters is also common along this street for other low-rise residential. One other thing I would like to note is that there will be a 3-meter landscape buffer, and there is a 3-meter easement actually at the rear of the property. So all of the lands at the rear of the property, including the vegetation, will remain unchanged and remain in place. We are proposing a transformer. That is also the other half of the easement. We could separate the transformers and provide 2, 1 on each site, but for the ease of, since we are already going for an easement with respect to access, we felt that it was more efficient to provide 1 transformer and have easement agreements shared. I hope that provides some clarification, and I kindly ask the committee to approve the variances, all 4 variances, and the requested severance, notwithstanding the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks so much. If you could turn your mic off, please. Any questions from the members of the committee? Oh.
Through you to planning, well, let me back up. Through you to the proponent, what was the motivation for dividing it in 2 in the first place?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee member. Originally, the motivation was for 10 units being ideal for CMHC funding and align with our client's project goals. The idea was to sever it in 2 and have the 2 properties. That is why originally, and we do have to, I didn't note it, but we are going through site plan approval for these properties, so there will be additional review by staff on landscaping, buffering, et cetera. So we are subject to site plan approval. Ideally, or originally, we were intending or hoping not to be subject to site plan approval and be able to move straight through committee of adjustment, but we're 295 feet from the railway, and if you're within 300, you're still subject to site plan approval. So.
Through It sounds to me like the costs attributed to 2 sets of servicing is going to be bound by the applicant. Could you confirm that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. For servicing on the property, if the consent is approved tonight, they would be required to do one connection per property. If it were denied, there would be one connection for the whole lot, and it would be split to service both buildings within the private property. Staff's comments regarding the costs of the servicing don't pertain to the installation. Alicia was correct. The applicant will take on those costs. However, the cost to maintain both connections would still be liable for the city for the remainder of the development's existence. So that was staff's comments regarding expenses taken on by the city that may not necessarily have to be if it remained as one lot.
So the prime motivation with respect to the city's declination of this file was not on the initial installation, it was on the ongoing maintenance, which would be borne by the city? That's
Through you, Mr. Chair. That was part of it. It wasn't all of it. Severing it creates the need for these easements that wouldn't be necessary if it were to remain as one lot. So staff feel that this proposal can move forward without the need for the consent, which would eliminate the need for the duplication of the servicing connections, as well as the need for the easements, and this infill opportunity still exists with the lot all as one, and then they don't need to rely on one another in order to function.
through you to the applicant. Can this project be financed? And again, it's outside of our purview, but you've represented that there is an issue in terms of CMHC financing if this was 20 units on one lot, correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee member. There will be concerns. I've spoken with the applicant and asked what I can share on their behalf. Essentially, if the development were not to be severed into the existing funding structure that they have set up with their partners, and CMHC they would need to find an alternative, and that would delay the project potentially indefinitely, but for a period of estimated at least 4 months, which would be setting back. We are looking at building permit submission in April and starting construction in the summer, and we would like to be able to move forward in that manner.
This project is, and I don't have a problem with it, is just an example of trying to be within those 10 units per lot developments and avoid the site plan application. And I can see how variance number 4 is a make or break on this particular development proposal right now. If they don't get it, then the whole thing goes back into the more traditional one lot with a bigger building and so on. And I can see that the other attempt here is to keep the services as if it was one building, so they get the benefit of that. So really, the city wants it to be one building on one lot, and there are advantages to having it 2 lots with 2 buildings, less 10 units or less. So it's a means to an end, and honestly, I don't really see a problem with it. But
You don't see a problem with what?
with the application in its entirety, variances 1 through 4, the severance, just by way of sharing. But I can see the motivation that this project is trying to achieve.
Thank you.
Given what you just said, Mr. Chair, through you to staff, it sounds like staff's opinion of this is that it's just more efficient to service this with 1 connection rather than 2. But being that this is a vacant lot, kind of somewhat bounded by existing residential, this could be severed and 2 residential units could be built with separate connections anyway, similar to some of the other applications we had. But has the capacity been verified on 1 single connection to service 20 units? And given that variance 4 is being denied, presumably that variance is not necessarily, it doesn't need to be denied. If the consent's denied, it doesn't apply. It would be withdrawn. Can you provide staff comments on the variance 4, assuming the consent was approved for the reduced frontage?
Through you, Mr. Chair. There was a couple questions in there, so if I miss anything, please let me know.
The reason staff want to see it develop as one property, as mentioned before, is yes, in part for the single servicing connection, also for, it will eliminate the need for the easements that are proposed, and the properties won't have to depend on one another if for whatever reason they end up in different hands for ownership purposes. Sorry, can you refresh me on the other questions?
Capacity for the existing connection to service 20 units?
So for capacity, they had to go and do an all pipes analysis, which basically monitors what the system capacity is. Whether it's 2 connections or 1, the impact on capacity doesn't matter. It's just a matter of the capacity is going through 2 pipes versus 1. So it won't have an impact on the amount of flow going into our systems.
So there's no service connection currently, then?
Through the chair, I'm unsure if there is an existing service connection from the previous building that's maybe just remained underground. I'm not aware, but they will definitely need to install their own connection to appropriately service what is being proposed.
And then the last question was, assuming we vote to approve the consent and all the variances that have been put forward, can you provide comment on the reduced frontage? If that, for that specific variance, is it being denied because of the consent denial, or is it being denied for other reasons?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it's outlined in the report, the reason for the denial, which is in part because, so we have a 20-meter minimum lot frontage to make sure that everything can be accommodated on the lot. Access to parking, that the building be up front, that we have adequate side yard setbacks, that the parking can be located at the rear of the property. The reason for the denial to the minimum lot frontage was in part feeding into the reason for the denial of the consent, but also just showing that 15 meters isn't adequate to provide all of those things on one lot. In this instance, the access needs to be shared. So if they were to operate individually, each with their own separate access, that would mean there would be parking up front and the building would be pushed towards the back of the property because there isn't room to accommodate a drive aisle to access those parking spaces around a proposed building. And in accordance with the official plan, the desire is to see buildings brought up front to Hartsel Road in this instance and have the parking screened from public view at the rear of the property, which is how, through working with the applicant, we got to this proposal that's before us tonight.
So if these properties were to change ownership and different owners own different properties, would there be minor variances that would have to be associated with that?
No, they'd have to fight over who shovel, they'd have to make sure that someone agrees to shovel the driveway that they both own, but there'd be no minor variances. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair. All of the required variances to implement the severance have been requested by the applicant tonight. So there wouldn't be any additional variances in terms of, and then the easement itself would be the legal document that provides access over the driveway. It's just, you have to trust that those people are going to work together during the life of the development.
Again, my comments, this is just clearly a creative way of having not more than 10 units on a site and getting 20 units on a site, which could all by itself support 20 units or more. So it's an economical way of getting something and getting it faster than normal development, and they have to share a driveway to do it, which seems to be the sticking point. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak this application, or else why would you still be here? So yes, come on down. You have one chance to pick the right button to turn on the microphone. I know you can do it.
I've seen enough people do it wrong.
Well, I know.
Right?
You had a head start.
So my name's Dan. I'm the owner of 11 Canterbury Drive. So my property partially backs onto the proposed development. I realize I might be premature in bringing my concerns here tonight because this seems to be more about the severing of the lot than it does about the proposed building. If you indulge me for a moment, if that's the case, I guess it doesn't hurt to bring my concerns forward so that everybody has an opportunity to hear them and any proposed building can be adjusted. I'm going to give you a very, very, very brief background before I get into it, because my concerns mostly revolve around drainage and grading. A number of years ago, I've lived on Canterbury Drive in my house now for going on over 15 years. A number of years ago, the city allowed McCarthy's, which is now Way to Grow Daycare on the corner of Thorncliffe and Harts Road, to pave over what was then a drainage swale. Since that time, from about 7 Canterbury on up the line, anytime, especially in the spring, that we get a significant amount of water, our lots flood. I've argued with the city about this a number of times, and I was told that there's nothing that can be done about it because it wasn't a legitimate drainage. The problem is we've been told to just raise our property. My next door neighbor's, number 7, when the water raises, his property grading is about 2 inches below his patio doors. He can't raise his property. As it is, my dryer vent comes out underground. I can't raise my property either. So my concerns are about grading and water drainage, and any building that goes up on that lot. My main concern is that the grading is not raised and it is shifted so that it is towards Halter Road, and that any drainage from the parking lot, the roof, anything on that site is funneled into a legitimate drain that flows out to Hudson Road and does not flow backwards into the lots of Canterbury Drive.
So the good news is, it'll be a requirement if these, so this is a staged thing. So right now, they want to know if they can move these lines around and get these approvals. Then they will presumably take these rectangles, turn them into buildings, plans, and have to go to the building department for approval. That'll go through engineering, development, traffic, zoning again, and then they'll be told to provide, and with that application, they'll be told to provide a site plan or stormwater management plan, which shows that none of the water within these property lines is impacting negatively over the property line, and it's probably going to be directed to catch basins in the parking lot and taken out to the street. So there is a mechanism in place to not contribute to the problem that already exists, but it's not going to happen. It doesn't happen tonight, it happens later on.
I kind of got that from the previous bits. So I guess my last thing, and it's pretty minor, just a quick question. There is a very, very, very big willow tree in the back corner of that property. It's been dying probably for the last 10 years, mostly because of neglect. I didn't know what the plans were, if you were planning on removing it. And again, this is probably not the place for this, but if you were planning on removing it, that tree does a lot for the water that doesn't drain away in those backyards. It would be wonderful if the developer would agree that if they are removing that they would put some kind of row of cedar trees or something in the back as a natural barrier. I mean, we've all backed onto essentially what's kind of a wooded lot now for the last 5 or 10 years, and to have 2 big 3-story buildings go up behind us is not going to be pretty. It'd be nice to have some kind of natural tree barrier between those 2 lots, just for noise and that sort of
Is this, to the applicant, is this property subject to site plan agreement? So there's a whole, well, it's not subject to it because it meets the threshold of.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we are 5 feet within the legislated boundary for the regulated area and are subject to site plan control, notwithstanding the 10 units.
Right.
So we're currently going through that process now.
Right.
And I appreciate the residents' comments. We'll make note of that. If any trees are removed, boundary trees, you'll be notified, and we'll require your permission. And we are proposing the landscape buffer and fencing, and we'll take all of that into consideration. As the chair noted, we also need to prepare the grading and stormwater plan, which will require stormwater sewer access to Hartselle. So everything will be regraded and managed on site to not exacerbate any problems that are currently going on in the neighborhood.
I know it's only conceptual, but do you have the concept plan that might be a benefit for?
So while that's being, there it is in color. So the short answer is your comments have been heard. We tried to address them this evening when it comes to the future landscaping plan. it'll be to the satisfaction of the city with respect to screening and so on, and would include planting of some kind as a screening around the perimeter of the parking lot for sure. So hopefully, when it's all said and done, you're happy with it. Thanks so much.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Anybody else who's hanging out here wish to speak this application, or just nothing better to do this evening than hang out here? No? No one else? Great, thank you. Any more questions from the members of the committee? Any comments, any final closing comments from the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify with respect to the 15-meter question that the committee member had. So for the 15-meter width, as I mentioned, because the parking lot is 10 units or 10 spaces or less and for residential purposes, under a subclause in the zoning bylaw, there is no minimum 6-meter drive aisle width requirement. We are able to accommodate a 3-meter, a 3.5-meter drive aisle and the building and the setback if necessary, just demonstrating that the property is functional at a 15, and we've consolidated the driveways in accordance with the OP, and given that Hartselle is an arterial road, we want to reduce the amount of entrances and exits and traffic moving, so thank you.
Through you, Chair, to staff, the application for consent was recommended for denial. If we were to recommend an approval, is there a standard list of conditions we could refer to?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if that's committee's decision tonight, I have sent a list of suggested conditions to Elaine that she can bring up for your reference.
Okay, are we ready to find out, to put a motion on the table and see where this goes? All right. So what are we looking at here? Is this a total rewrite of conditions, or are a couple of them been, can you, from what we saw with the original application, is this a complete rewrite of the 10 conditions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I haven't rewritten any conditions. These are the conditions I put together should the committee decide to approve the application tonight.
Right.
No,
Okay.
it's okay.
I can refer to those then. Sorry.
Have you seen them?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I do see them right there, but I
Not
have
in
not.
advance.
No, I have not, but in looking over them, they are standard. I have no concerns with them. We've completed the all pipes model, and it's determined that for 20 units, there is sufficient capacity in the system. All the remaining plans are underway as we're currently going through the site plan approval process with staff, so I have no concerns.
Tom, you okay?
With that, I'm prepared to put a motion forward. Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B 2024 and variance applications A 7124 and A 7224 as presented in the notice of hearing be approved, subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report. As the consent is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, has no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, has regard to the provisions of Section 5124 of the Planning Act, conforms with the policies of the city's official plan, and with the conditions fulfilled will also comply with the zoning bylaw, maintains the intent and purpose of the provincial planning statement, and does not conflict with any applicable provincial plans, and both variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are both in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
So, just to clarify, in case my mind wandered off there, that was approval of the consent and all 4 of the minor variances for each lot.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Is there any discussion among the members of the committee about this?
And to clarify that it was, the conditions weren't in the technical report, so they were as shown. I just want to.
The conditions as shown.
Any discussion among ourselves? Great, all those in favor of the motion? Your application's been approved unanimously, thank you. That brings to an end another exciting evening of the Committee of Adjustment here at St. Catharines. And is there any new business, Elaine?
There is no new business.
Is there an opportunity to make a plug out there for the general public to come on, to apply to be a member of the Committee of Adjustment?
We can, so it has been, it'll be circulated on Facebook, I think, and Twitter, and it's on their website that there is an opening for a Committee of Adjustment member if anyone wishes to apply. I believe the closing is January 10th. It's been extended. Thank you. Please apply online.
You might win a free toaster, too, in the application raffle. All right, that's a new business. The next meeting is for January 8th. That's a special meeting, and I'm already going to declare my conflict of interest, I think. Yeah. I know. I'm saying it now live. All right.
December-
Meeting.
There's no special hearing next week?
January 8th. Motion to adjourn. Thank you, Tom. Meeting's over. Thanks.